I think one of the interesting things about young people, the first thing is that they're just trying to figure out themselves, like, is whatever's going on with me, is it normal? And I think as parents, I think we forget to normalize things. I think we make a big deal out of things that are not a big deal, but for some reason, we get nervous and we don't know how to talk about things like puberty or, sexual health. And I think that they just want to know, like, I'm growing tall. Is that normal? I'm taller than my peers. Is that normal? So I think normalizing things is really, really important. I think for parents, this is a hard one. Not all parents know how to say I made a mistake. Oops. And I think, honestly, all parents fail their kids because we're trying to figure it out too. And there's just no perfect book. Who knew about a pandemic? So we're flying by the seat of our pants. And sometimes, we trip and stumble. And so I think the best way to role model that for young people is to be honest about our own mistakes. And I think when parents don't do that, I think what happens as young people get older and they mature, that once they are starting to notice that and be able to put words to that, then they become resentful because then or angry and they don't understand. And, there's still parts of them that are maturing and parts of a story they may not exactly get. But I think what we can do is we can first, really honor and respect them by coming to them and being really honest and telling them the truth. I think understanding that they're all very, very different. We have teenagers that academically just soar, that's their thing. They get into that space and they just do really great. And then we have young people that are just naturally creative, you can just see it, that they're just going to be artsy kids. And then we have young people who fool us, they start off one way and they turn a different way. And so I think really just honoring all of that is important, that if you're the 4.0 kid, yes. And if you're the 2.0 kid, yes. It's all great. It's all wonderful. Because I think what we're learning, I think grown-ups learned this a long time ago. I was just having this conversation, that it's not necessarily about being academically smart. We know that there's this whole thing about social emotional learning and that you have to have both. And so this giving young people the space to be brilliant in whatever way that they are and honoring that and celebrating that is so very, very important. Young people would say, my uncle said, or my cousin said, and or a big sister or big brother is where they would get their information from. And now it's a little bit more complicated because you have to try to help a young person navigate the difference between what is fact on the internet and what is not. So a lot of times that's where they're getting their source. I think another thing that's really, really challenging is social media and this whole idea that, my life is perfect. And now I take this perfect picture and, I have all of these friends and I have the perfect relationships and, college is perfect and everything is perfect. And then when their lives aren't perfect, then they think that something is wrong with them. When in fact, they just took a good picture. They just said great words, but that's not really the reality. And I think that's hard for young people. I think bullying has changed because now, it used to be you had to be kind of a courageous bully because you had to do it face to face. You had to at least push them down. You had to do certain things or say cruel words, but all of it was face to face. And now I can go through the internet and now you don't have to see me. So I can be a coward. And that can be really, really difficult for young people. I think we provide a lot that kids don't get at home. I think sometimes parents feel awkward. It's very funny because I try to have conversations with the young people that live in my home and they're like, ew, first of all, you're being weird. And here I come thinking I'm the CEO of Teen Hype. Let's talk about sex. And if you don't, so I realized okay, yeah. It doesn't work that way. So I think, we usually give parents some tips, some really simple tips, things like, use a movie. Movies are, You know, I was raised on Lifetime, and my grandmother still watches Hallmark Channel, and some of them are the most predictable movies, but they have really great lessons. And so using those kind of as teachable moments to ask a young person if they agree with those decisions or what they would do differently, I think is like safe space that won't freak a parent out. Sometimes I tell parents, if you're going to have a conversation, you know, you don't have to necessarily do it eye to eye, like let's sit down and have the talk. No, you can make a pizza together and just ask questions. And sometimes asking them like, you know, what's going on? You know, what's happening in school? And you know, at first they will say nothing, everything is fine. But you just kind of keep up. Oh yeah, you mentioned so-and-so last week. Like what happened with that? And what's going on here in school? And then asking them, I think the more we are intentional about building critical thinking, I think it helps young people to kind of figure out themselves and how to navigate the world themselves. So I think asking young people, so what do you think about that? What would you have done differently? As parents, make it open-ended. You know, a lot of times make the step back so that young people can, you know, really, really think and give a well thought out answer. And if the answer is not enough, ask more. Sometimes boys say stuff like, I don't know. And I say, okay, well, what do you know? and starting there. And sometimes they don't know. And that's okay too. And let's start with what we do know. And then we can get there. I think normalizing it, because I think we were raised, somebody came up with the idea that it was the talk. And it was this one time where you sit down and people my age and older have stories of when they were given a book.
Yep, me.
And you were expected to read it and digest it and apparently do something with that. But I really think it starts when they are young, like 2 years old. We start by role modeling what love is and what healthy relationships are and what a good touch is and what a bad touch is. And see, we don't think about those things as normal parts of sexual health. And I try to tell parents, sexual health is not just about sex. It's about so many other things. You know, it is about gender. It is about reproductive health. It is about, you know, being able to know your body parts. And so many times when we were younger, we gave them pet names, but young people need to know what are the real names for our body parts. And just keeping those things like really normalized. You don't have to pull out a big graphic chart and it doesn't have to be a huge video or anything. And just keep it really, really simple and listen to the question, because sometimes young people will ask you a question and they just want that answer. Like recently, my daughter said to me, over the pandemic, she says, Mom, there's going to be a parade. Can we go to the parade? And I said, I haven't heard about this parade. There's a parade? And she said, yes, there are all of these rainbow flags. And she was like, this will be a fantastic parade to go to. Can we go to that parade? And I was like, sure, we can go to that parade if you want to. But do you know why what that parade is about? And she was like, no. And so we just had a really simple conversation about, you know, that there are, the kids in your class, they have two moms. Sometimes kids have two dads. And sometimes people like the people that look like them. Well, they celebrate that. And we can go and celebrate with them if you want. And that was it. That's all she wanted to know at the moment. Then she came back to me and said, Mom, when do I get my flag? And I said, what flag? And she said, you know, the flag that tells you if you like boys or girls. I was like, oh, we should just have, life should be that simple. So I think just honoring their innocence and answering the question and not making everything a big deal or freaking out about every little thing, I think makes a big difference, especially now because we got social media and kids Google things and they see things, some of them have seen more things than us. They may not be able to define it or, you know, really understand it or analyze it, but, you know, they've been exposed. That's a good question. I think at this stage, you know, I'm old enough to see what I did. You know, my first daughter, I was 17. So I'll be the first to say I did not know what I was doing. And so what drives me now, I think, are trying to make those like little tweaks and corrections now in my younger daughter, and trying to empower my bonus children and support them in their development. All of that drives me, and trying to be a good granddaughter to my grandmother, and just trying to really, really honor the positions that God has put me in. Some days I question, you know, you sure about this? But did we vote? But for the most part, just and I have exceptional young people, like the young people that. So I have to tell you that when I was a kid, I wanted a big family. I wanted like 10 kids. And because I come from a very, very small family, so I wanted a very, very large family. And God knew I was crazy. And so to me, I think teen hype was like the substitute. He's like, okay, let me give you something you can handle. So I ended up with all these like almost surrogate kids that I get the opportunity to love on. But I also get the opportunity to see how exceptional the young people are in my house. And they are 3 very different young people, like very, very different. And that's fun to watch them and honor their growth and their path individually, because they're unique in their own ways. So it's a lot of fun. I think that I was raised in a generation of children are meant to be seen and not heard. Lots of parents my age remember that. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's not true. And really the work that we're doing is around reversing that young people are meant to be seen and meant to be heard. And I think I have seen the consequence of what that was like when we took away young people's voice. Mm. And I think as parents, we meant well. We always mean well. Sure. But what happens is they don't learn to advocate for themselves, and we didn't know how to ask for what we need. And so I'm really, really, really passionate about making sure that young people have voice and that we give them agency and space. And we share our power, and we share seats at the table for them so that they have this capacity to grow and learn. And so they demonstrate their value in this world. And that can be hard for grownups, but that's what I would love to see. And that's why we do this work.